UFC Mexico Fight Week. The UFC returns to Mexico, headlined by Brandon Moreno, a fan favorite, a highly ranked flyweight, a former champion, and Steve Erceg, who has been a contender in this non-competitive, really, flyweight division for some time. We all know that the flyweight division, it's really just Pantoja and everybody else right now. There's Pantoja and there's everybody else. And Pantoja's just running laps. He's running cycles. These are two of Pantoja's pets right here. Like, Pantoja's just running laps on these guys. Before we get into UFC Mexico, which is an okay fight night, I want to talk about UFC London, which just happened. I'm adding a recap for UFC London in here because I don't think my breakdown for UFC Mexico is going to be too long. Most of the fighters on that card I'm not familiar with. And FYI, bro, I only break down the fights that I know. I'm not going to waste people's time by breaking down fights that I completely have no idea about and fighters I don't know about. So that's just one thing about my channel is I don't give the comprehensive, literally every single fight. I try to do a good overview, but I can't break down every single fight because I don't know these under-the-radar NPC fighters, you know? I only know the staples and whatever. So, yeah, I want to talk about UFC London real quick. And as I expected, right? And by the way, when I say as I expected, and you think I'm making this up, check my other video on the UFC London Fight Week video where I give my predictions and overview of the card. Check, my receipts are over there in that video for everyone to see that I predicted, which wasn't that hard to predict, that Sean Brady masterclassed Leon Edwards. This is the end of Leon. That's it. Leon absolutely masterclass and dog-walked in all kinds of ways to Sean Brady. Sean Brady really just propelled into a new level last night. People were unsure of how legit Sean Brady is. I mean, he was 17-1. The only loss was to Belal, which is not a bad loss at all, considering that Belal is now the current champion of the division. But Sean Brady took a huge leap last night, really to just show and display that there are levels to this. His grappling levels. He just displayed a whole repertoire, like artillery of high-level grappling and wrestling. And even on the feet, he looked really good with the striking. He looked really good when Leon Edwards was supposed to have the striking advantage and the height advantage, right? All week, Leon is saying he's too short for this division. But Leon, the biggest mistake he keeps on making is he's overlooking guys that he has fights coming up against. During the Belal fight, he kind of wasn't really giving Belal his credit. And I guess back then you could have the confidence because he's coming off 3 straight wins, 12 straight wins actually, but 3 straight title fight wins, and you had the belt around your waist. I mean, Leon Edwards' downfall has hit so bad, they revoked his custom shorts. Leon Edwards only wore his custom shorts once, and then they took it away from him. So, yeah, Leon Edwards, nothing going for him. Sean Brady had him in all types of positions. Legit, Leon Brady just put himself in a whole new conversation where he's probably going to be the number 1 ranked contender come this week when they update the rankings. Unbelievable performance by Sean Brady. Can't wait to see what's next for him. I like Sean Brady a lot. People maybe didn't like him because of his boring style in this. After this, I think a lot of more people are just going to be excited to see Sean Brady whatever he does next. Clearly, he's either next for the title or number 1 contender eliminator versus Shavkat or something. But he could go with some of the best in this division. So, yeah, Sean Brady gets it done, and Leon Edwards, we'll see if he decides to stick around the UFC, but I don't think there's any coming back from this. This is the downfall of Leon. If anything, you give him fun fights, but he might just be a gatekeeper at this point. But he's definitely not getting another shot at the title for the rest of his career. That's what I can tell you. And for Sean Brady, it only goes up from here. Elite took advantage of this huge opportunity, comes in the London Fight Night, takes on a former welterweight champion who literally just lost the belt and number 1 ranked, and puts on one of the most dominant performances we've seen this year so far. Sean Brady is definitely championship material. I think in a Belal rematch, he could be competitive. I think in that storyline, there is an ending where Sean Brady would overthrow Belal. But let's see what happens with Jack Della Maddalena. Shavkat's still in the mix. Amazing win from Sean Brady. And the rest of this card, it was a really good card on paper for a fight night, but ultimately didn't really deliver on the finishes. Carlos Ulberg, kind of a lackluster win versus Jan Blachowicz. A lot of people were upset with the decision. I originally picked Jan, and then I walked it back and said Carlos Ulberg was just going to win because of all the momentum. He's significantly younger, 7 straight wins, which is now 8. I think you give Carlos Ulberg either Yuri Prohaska or the winner of Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree and call it a day. For Jan Blachowicz' days are over, man. That Polish power, all that. I mean, he's over 40. I think he should just leave the UFC or also give him fun fights. Kevin Holland picked him to get a bounce back win versus Gunnar Nelson. I'm happy he did. So Kevin Holland's not a complete jobber after all. He can continue to get fun fights in the welterweight division, so I'm happy to see him back in the win column. Molly McCann lost, so she retired. Chris Duncan, I don't know if we could even say like Jordan Vucenic got fraud checked. Was he ever really? I mean, I guess he was highly regarded, but in his second UFC fight, loses again to Chris Duncan. Chris Duncan gets him by submission. And then Morgan Charrier, I really thought he was going to win this, and he was going to propel into a new level, but Nathaniel Wood got him knocked down in the first round. Took control from there. Nathaniel Wood ends up beating Morgan Charrier. You got Chris Padilla. Loner Kavanaugh. This was probably the most exciting fight of the night. Loner Kavanaugh goes to 9-0. Extremely promising flyweight contender. Extremely promising. Sick fight versus Felipe Dos Santos, but Loner Kavanaugh proved he has a chin. Gets a really good performance versus Felipe, and I'm excited to see where he goes from here in the flyweight division. I would love to see, and here's a random thought, but I would love to see Loner Kavanaugh versus Kaya Sakura one day. I think that would be a sick fight. Marcin Tybura ends up holding his ground, fraud checking Mick Parkin. Christian Leroy Duncan gets the win. Got a couple others, and then Guram lost with Khamzat and the Topuria brothers in his corner. Now that's bad. So that's ultimately my recap of UFC London that just happened. Now let's move on to UFC Mexico. Brandon Moreno versus Steve Erceg. So honestly, I don't know if people really highly regarded Steve Erceg at one point. I know he challenged Pantoja for the title back at UFC 301, and that's when I first heard about Steve Erceg. Loses that, then comes back at UFC 305, loses to Kai Kara France. Kai Kara France knocks him out. I think Steve Erceg's highly overrated. I think this fight has Brandon Moreno written all over it for him to get a big win over Steve Erceg in his hometown of Mexico, his home country. And Brandon Moreno will reestablish himself as a contender. Although, how exciting is that really? If Brandon Moreno wins this, we know if he wins this again, because he just beat Amir Albazi, who had a crazy record at the time. Was he undefeated? No. I don't know, but he just beat Amir Albazi. So now they're giving Brandon Moreno another fight. Do you give him I don't even know what they do here. That's how bad the flyweight division is right now, because Pantoja, he's running laps. He already fought Brandon Moreno twice, I think. So, what? They're going to do a trilogy after this again? How exciting is that really? That's the problem. Both these guys, we've already seen Pantoja beat both of them. So how exciting is the rematch really? I think Pantoja still beats Brandon Moreno. And clearly Steve Erceg. But in this specific matchup, I think Brandon Moreno will get it done. Fan favorite, looks super clean on the feet. To be honest, I thought Amir Albazi was going to beat him. So to see Brandon Moreno get that kind of win versus Amir Albazi showed Brandon Moreno is still a high-level flyweight. Everyone loves him. And I would love to see him reclaim that gold one day. I know that a very big, prized moment in UFC history is when Brandon Moreno won the flyweight belt. It was a very, wholesome, emotional moment that a lot of people cherish. To see the babyface assassin get that win. But yeah, I think Brandon Moreno will beat Steve Erceg this weekend in UFC Mexico. And what will we see him get another title shot? That's the thing. Or do you give him a Manel Cap next? I think Brandon Moreno is going to want his shot again after this fight. But maybe they're going to give him a Manel Cap. I don't know. Flyweight division is just so underwhelming these days. I don't think it's as bad as the heavyweight division, at least they have still a lot of like up and coming prospects and talent. They still have, as far as the roster goes, they have that kind of depth, but heavyweight's so bad. So yeah, Brandon Moreno, I got him beating Steve Erceg. Then Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober. I think the last time we saw Drew Dober, he got pieced up by Gene Silva. So Emmanuel Torres lost at UFC Noche. So yeah, kind of I don't really know. Both are coming off a loss. Hopefully we should a good fight. I think I'm going to rock with Drew Dober for this one. I think I'm going to rock with Drew Dober. Kevin Gastelum versus Joe Bodybags Pyfer. So Sean Brady just got the win. Now it's his boy's turn, Joe Pyfer, to come in here. Joe Pyfer coming off an exciting finish in his last fight, like a sick knockout, versus Kevin Gastelum, who's a UFC middleweight veteran at this point. Kevin Gastelum's fought a lot of who's who in the UFC. He's fought Israel Adesanya. Did he fight Sean Brady? Does he switch between welterweight and middleweight, right? Yeah. Joe Pyfer. That's it. I think Joe Pyfer is going to have a huge hook that puts Kevin Gastelum to sleep. So let's do that. Joe Pyfer knocking out Kevin Gastelum. And, I don't think Joe Pyfer ever is going to really be a high-level middleweight. But he's just one of these fighters that could just give you exciting, fun fights in the division, right? This guy's got real power in his hands. He's like a middleweight Josh Emmett. So, I'm excited to see Joe Pyfer fight this weekend. And then Raul Rosas Jr., one of the youngest fighters in the entire UFC on the roster. Really impressive run so far on the UFC. It was pretty obvious they were going to put him on this card on UFC Mexico. So he's fighting this guy, Vince Morales, 16-9. Raul Rosas, 10-1. And yeah, I think Raul Rosas will continue to just kind of put together some wins. I know the UFC is trying to build him up right now, so this is clearly a fight designed for that, for Raul Rosas to continue to build up some wins. Then slowly get into more of the top 15 bantamweight conversation. But how does Raul Rosas do against the more experienced, high-level guys in the division? I think Raul Rosas is still so young, and he still has so much to gain and learn. But for this particular fight on this weekend, we got to rock with the hometown kid, Raul Rosas, getting a win in front of Mexico. So let's rock with Raul Rosas Jr. I'm surprised they didn't put Zellhuber on this card. He's Mexican, right? Then David Martinez versus Simon Oliveira. I'll be honest, I don't know who these fighters are, bro. I'll be completely honest. So, yeah, this guy's 1-0, friggin' off the Contender Series. Or maybe they just didn't update his stats. We'll see what happens with that fight. Ronaldo Rodriguez is entertaining. Lazy boy. This guy's fun. Ronaldo Rodriguez, who just beat Ozzy Osbourne or something like that. I forgot the guy's name. At UFC 306. Out of the entire press conference, Ronaldo Rodriguez and Osbourne were clearly the most entertaining out of that press conference. The way they were jabbing back and forth. The way Ronaldo was cursing out a Mexican with his giant hat. He's 18-2. Impressive win. He had a really exciting fight in the prelims of that Mexico card at UFC Noche in the Sphere. So that put me on notice to Ronaldo Rodriguez. He could also be an exciting flyweight. I'm rocking with Lazy Boy. He's got some cool personality and attitude to him. And nothing much else to say on the rest of this card, really. I mean, not too many names that stand out to me. CJ Vergara. I've seen this guy before. Yeah, I mean, not much else. You got Huzel Costa, who just beat Andre Fili at Seattle. Quick turnaround. And a bunch of other fighters on this card. Gabriel Miranda. This goof was who I mentioned got knocked out by Charrier last time in France. So yeah, I mean, this card's okay. Nothing too crazy for Mexico, but, they put a couple of their prominent Mexico fighters on this, like Raul Rosas Jr., Brandon Moreno, Ronaldo Rodriguez, and then you got the American fight between Joe Pyfer and Kevin Gastelum. So that's UFC Mexico fight week. And yeah, until the next time.